Trump bans men in women's sports. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, promises made, promises kept. Trump, like a juggernaut, is just steamrolling the opposition. And I got to tell you, my friends, it's like a checklist. I promise this, check, deliver. Promise this, check, deliver. Promise this, check, deliver. Well, yesterday, in front of famous female athletes and other women competitors, Trump finished and fulfilled a seminal vow of his campaign. And it is something that, frankly, the Kuhner man, as you know, if you listen to this show, has been advocating for many, many years. Get biological men, not just out of women's sports, out of women's bathrooms, out of women's locker rooms, out of women's showers. It's time to protect women, to protect their dignity, to protect their privacy, and yes, to give them a fair shot when they engage in competitive athletics. Listen now to President Trump signing his executive order saying from this point forward, I am banning all biological men from competing in women's sports. Any school, any college, any university that receives federal funding, if they allow a quote-unquote trans male, or I guess trans female, a man who claims to be a female, to engage in sports on a team, or to enter a woman's locker room, or enter a woman's bathroom, or start showering with women, you're going to lose all of your federal funding like this, in the snap of a finger. Listen to Trump. Those days are now over. Roll cut one, Mike.
With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over. With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding.
Yes. Yeah, baby. You had me at hello. That's what I'm talking about. Look, he's completely right. As you know, Title IX, very famous, set up and established female sports in our country. And at the heart of Title IX is that women should be treated fairly and that they should have access to sports facilities, create sports teams, have female locker rooms, female-only locker rooms, female-only bathrooms, and, of course, female-only sports teams. And to me, look, I remember growing up, it was a huge achievement. We had, at our high school, we had a women's basketball team. In fact, they were quite good, to be honest. A women's volleyball team, a women's track team. And this was considered a big thing in the 1980s. Before, in the past, there weren't female sports programs, or they were limited sports programs. Now, women had sports teams like the men. Literally, like the men. If men had track, women had track. If men had soccer, women had soccer. If men had volleyball, women had volleyball. If men had basketball, women had basketball. If men had softball, women had softball. It was incredibly liberating. I was so proud. Thinking, to me, I'm like, this is how you treat women. This is exactly, honestly, this is one of the great achievements and accomplishments of civilization. And I can't believe, look, I love that Trump did it. Please don't get me wrong. I love it, love it, love it. But have we gotten to the point? Think about what Trump had to do. Previously, he had to sign an executive order to say there are two genders, two biological sexes, a male and female. Like, duh. Like, you got to sign an executive order? That's like saying, I'm going to sign an executive order, the sky is blue. We need to say that? Well, apparently we do. With these crazy moonbats. Yes. And now we have to sign an executive order to ban, to prohibit, to prevent biological men who just slap on some lipstick or put on a wig or whatever, and suddenly they're competing in swimming or in track and field, and they're winning all the trophies, and they're breaking shattering all these records. And by the way, women are getting hurt. Volleyball games, you got to see a field hockey, lacrosse. Women are getting severely hurt, smashed faces, broken nose, broken jaws. I mean, you have to see what's happening out there. Someone, as I said, is going to get killed. It's a matter of time. Boxing now, they have men competing as women in boxing. Someone's going to get killed. And it's not going to be the biological male. I guarantee you that. Listen now to President Trump saying, we're hosting the Olympics in 2028. It is going to be under Trump's watch. Not a single biological man is going to compete in a female sport over my dead body. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
Los Angeles in 2028, my administration will not stand by and watch men beat and batter female athletes, and we're just not going to let it happen, and it's going to end, and it's ending right now, and nobody's going to be able to do a damn thing about it, because when I speak, we speak with authority.
Yes. Yep. I'm sorry, it's 6 o'clock, whatever, 6:06 in the morning, but it took someone, with balls. I'm sorry, with cojones, as the Spanish would say, to do this. Because the yellow-livered, weak, cowardly Republicans refused to stand up to Biden and the Democrats over the last 4 years. And so Donald Trump finally said, okay, if you guys won't fix it, I will. And I just got to say this, really honestly. What is Riley Gaines asking for? What are all these female athletes asking for? Just a chance to compete against fellow women and let the best woman win? They're not asking for pie in the sky. They're not asking for special privileges. They're not asking for a handout. They're basically saying, please protect us from biological men. Because I'm sorry, biological men with their testosterone and their DNA and the genetic makeup of men, I'm sorry, it's just not that some women aren't stronger, not that some women aren't faster, but overall, men are taller, thicker, bigger, stronger, faster. They just are. Doesn't mean they're better. It just means physically, in many cases, they are superior to women in terms of competition and athletics. That's all. Okay. It's not the end of the world. But leave women alone. Let them play sports. They have a right to play sports and compete amongst each other. Listen now to President Trump saying, now female athletes and that proud American tradition of female athletes is now going to be respected and upheld again. No more cheating by biological men. No more abusing women by biological men. No more invading the privacy of women by biological men. Those days of radical transgenderism are gone. From now on, it's not the fringe minority that calls the shots. It's the overwhelming majority, the normal mainstream majority that is calling the shots. Roll cut 2, Mike.
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time. Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
Yes. 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 Now, notice, isn't Trump supposed to be the sexist? Right? This is the line the media and the libs keep using. He's a sexist, misogynistic pig. Who's the one defending women's rights? Trump. Who's the one defending women's dignity? Trump. Who's the one defending women's privacy? Trump. And there was a very touching, actually adorable moment. It's more visual. It's hard to see. Obviously, you can't see it with this audio clip. But Trump was surrounded by over 100 little girls. Sandy, what would you say their age was? Maybe what, 6, 7, 8 years old? Something like that? Like young girls. Female athletes, all of them. Budding female athletes. And he was surrounded by them. They were so adorable. And he was signing the executive order. It was a great moment. It really was. I'm going to play the clip on the other side, and I want to take calls. But he was asking these wonderful little girls, all of them who compete. They do gymnastics, they play soccer, they play all sorts of sports. And he's like, come, gather around the desk. Come on. Here, I'm going to sign this, and this is really ultimately for you, for your future. So, let me ask all of you, do you agree with Trump's decision to ban biological men from female sports, from female bathrooms, locker rooms, showers? I say I stand with him 1,000%. This should never have happened to begin with. But that's me. I want to hear from you. Your call's next. 620 on the great WRKO. Winning. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer here. Trump now signs more executive orders, this time banning all biological men, basically transgenders, from competing in female sports, but also they are banned from women's locker rooms, showers, bathrooms across the board. If a school, college, university allows biological men to compete in sports or to go into women's bathrooms, they will lose all federal funding. My question to you, do you agree with President Trump? And is he the true champion of women's rights? I say yes. What say you? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quickly. It was a very adorable, touching moment where just before he signs this landmark executive order, he has about 100 or just over 100 young girls who are all athletes. They're all budding athletes. Some of them play, in gymnastics. Some of them play soccer. Others like to play lacrosse or whatever it is that they like to swimming. A lot of them are into swimming. And so they gathered around the president's desk in the Oval Office, and Trump signed the landmark executive order. Roll cut 2A, Mike.
If you'd like to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay. Come on. Okay? You ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that. I want to make this a really good signature. Because this is a big one, right? Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
Really, he saved their futures. I'm telling you, he did. On many levels. And let me tell you just on one. We can, we could do 4 hours on this topic. We have other topics to get to. That's why I want to take some calls, and we're going to move on because there's so much news happening under Trump. But just think about this. What's already started to happen is that women, female athletes, were losing scholarships. We're losing opportunities, student athletes, to get into certain colleges and universities. And not because they weren't the best female athlete, but because they were losing out to these loser transgender females. These men who put on a wig or put some lipstick on and are mediocre against other men, but suddenly can beat up on women. And so they were getting the prize scholarships. They were getting the big grants. And they were getting a lot of financial aid or getting free tuition. And so they were able to, get these coveted positions and, and run on the quote women's track team or play on the women's volleyball team or obviously the big one with Riley Gaines, swim against female swimmers. Remember, it's not just that they're stealing away trophies and cheating in terms of competition, but as Riley Gaines said, that person is taking away slots from other females, which means they're knocked off the team. They don't get the scholarship, or they don't keep their scholarship. They don't keep their financial aid. And these are women that have worked like dogs for their entire lives. The training, the hours, the preparation, the workouts, the early mornings, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning every day, to be the best that they can possibly be. And suddenly, a Leah Thomas or some loser like him comes along and just starts blowing them out of the water because he's a man. That's it. Literally, that's it. Well, big boy, if you're so good, compete against other fellow men. I'm sorry, am I wrong? 617-266-6868 is the number. Listen now to Riley Gaines. She has been, and to her credit, she was tough. She fought hard. She has the spirit of a warrior. She took this crusade on personally, and she wouldn't take no for an answer. And she was vilified by the left. Made public enemy number one by the liberal media. And she did not back down. Yesterday, in some ways, was her day. Listen now to Riley Gaines saying, this is a great moment of vindication, not just for me, but for so many other countless female athletes who have been dreaming about this day. Roll cut 3, Mike.
But to see President Trump's decisive action today, as you said, it was a campaign promise of his, issue number 17 on his platform, no men and women's sports. So to see him deliver in the way that he did, that visual that you saw, him signing this executive order with, dozens of young girls surrounding him. I can't even tell you what that visual means to me. Someone who, of course, 3 years, it doesn't sound like a long time, especially for those who I feel indebted to, who fought long before me. But I just feel vindicated, and I feel this overwhelming feeling of gratitude.
You should feel vindicated. Honestly, I tip my hat off to you. Really, Riley, honestly. All respects, as they say. Really. All respects to you. She's completely right. Look, and it's 6:30 in the morning, or almost 6:30. People have their children in the car, getting ready to go to school. Although in some parts of Massachusetts there is no school because of the weather, but let that go. Riley Gaines, and it was very painful for her and other female athletes, talked about being in a woman's locker room, in a woman's bathroom, with a biological male athlete with, let's say, Speedos on for swimming, and they're getting aroused. The men are getting aroused seeing all these women in skimpy attire at close proximity. And they're getting aroused right in front of them. Okay? I don't want to say more. You know what? And they're like, we felt sexually harassed. This was a form of sexual abuse. And they're showering naked in front of us. They're walking around completely naked in front of us. Some of them literally, completely aroused. And when we went to complain to the administration, they said, suck it up, Buttercup. If you don't like it, too bad. Look the other way. Go into a locker and close the door and change in the locker and wait till they call your name. Disgusting. Disgusting. 6:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, President Trump is on a roll, as I like to say, or to quote him, and the way he likes to say it, winning, winning, winning. Yesterday, signed a landmark, historic executive order banning biological men from competing in women's sports or going into women's bathrooms, locker rooms, showers. I say this is a victory for women's rights. What say you? 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me ask you very quickly two key questions. One, Do you agree with Trump's executive order? Should biological men, even though they identify as women, should they be barred or prohibited from competing in female sports or entering women's bathrooms or locker rooms? And number two, and I think this is the heart of the issue, do so-called trans rights supersede women's rights? Or do women's rights trump trans rights? 617-266-6868. Betty in Quincy. Thanks for holding, Betty, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Betty, how are you?
I'm good. Are you tired of winning? This is exhausting. Oh, my God. What a vision that was. When I saw all those little girls, oh, my gosh, surrounding, in the Oval Office there. Oh, my gosh, what a picture. It was just such a wholesome moment. It's like he's got their back, and it just brought me back. I'm an athlete as well, and when I was 7 and 8 playing co-club and stuff like this, I mean, this is just amazing. This is common sense at its best, and you know what? It gives those girls, such hope, and that, they can go on to pursue careers in sports and maybe get their college education paid for, as I did. And it was so we didn't have to worry about, boys taking our scholarships away and things like that, back when I played. But it's an outstanding moment. 1,000% he was right. Women's rights, girl power, girl rights, trump it up. They trump it all. And, I have to just say, Jeff, Riley Gaines, I had the honor of meeting her in New Hampshire at an event. I mean, what a class act she is, and what courage to stand up at her age. And she's been just pioneering this whole thing. And she was saying, well, where are the coaches? Where is anyone? Where are the adults in the room? Trump is that adult, and it's so beautiful to see. It was such an amazing moment. Loved it.
Betty, you're such a positive, optimistic person, and honestly, that's really to your credit. So maybe you're the wrong person that I should be asking this to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Why is it, and this is what shocked Riley Gaines, that the people or persons in authority, doesn't matter, men or women, doesn't matter, okay, what biological sex, constantly disappointed her. They never supported the women. They never supported the female athletes. No matter how outrageous the conduct of people like Leah Thomas and all these others, it didn't matter how much they exposed themselves to them. It didn't matter how much they showered in front of them. It didn't matter how uncomfortable they made them feel, how abused they felt, how harassed they felt, how there was such blatant naked cheating, that nobody had the guts, the spine, the character to stand up to the transgender lobby and the LGBTQ plus agenda. Well, I'm just curious. I know Trump does. God bless him. That's why we elected him. That's why we love him. But I'm just curious, Betty, because I know you would, obviously. But honestly, why is it that so many people in power and authority were afraid to do what is so obviously the right thing to do?
Going to be politically correct, or if they get paid off, or this and that. I mean, it's just disturbing. But when you see a young woman, or anybody for that matter, excelling in their sport, in anything that people do and they excel at, for some twisted reason, people don't like that and they want to tear you down. I mean, like you said, hours and hours at the gym, all the sacrifices, this and that. I don't know, but this is just a triumphant moment. And you know what? We got to get those people out of there. And Charlie Baker, I'm sorry. Like, he has to check in the books. No, you don't. You don't. Stop listening to these people that are crying and screaming out. I say the best use of the balls is what Trump just did in the White House, if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know. But, you know what? That's where that needs to stop. And, I mean, I don't know. There's a sick perversion that, when you're supposed to be doing the right thing, you're not. And there's a reason for it. People are getting paid. I don't know. These girls.
You nailed it. No, you nailed it, Betty. You nailed it. Look, Baker is a joke. Baker is a disgrace. For those that are listening, they think, Charlie Baker, governor of Massachusetts. No, he's also the head of the NCAA athletics, NCAA college sports. And Mike, what does he make? I heard $14-15 million at least minimum annual salary. He makes an obscene, Mike, maybe you can double check. I know it's 14 minimum. It could be even be more. It's an obscene amount of money. And, he's testifying in front of Congress, this loser, and he's like, well, we have to follow federal guidance. I don't know what federal guidance is. Well, what about just simple morality? Why not just simple decency? How about simple chivalry? Like, don't you have daughters, Charlie? Would you like them to be swimming on a competitive team and some guy, with all that muscle and testosterone comes in and steals the victory from them or takes away their scholarship that they work so hard for? Or worse yet, is flashing, forgive me, his schlong in front of them and showering in front of them and saying, hey, baby, take a look at this. And what, as a father, you're just going to stand back and say, yeah, well, hey, I'm looking for federal guidance. So, now he's got his federal guidance. Trump could not have, it's like a hammer to the head. That's what I love about Trump. No ambiguity, no room for misinterpretation. So, no, it's wrong, it's prohibited, it's banned, you do it, no funding, period, full stop. Betty, as always, great call. 617-266-6868. And by the way, Baker was phenomenally wealthy before he got the job at the NCAA. You see, this is, again, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but honestly, this is what I find so peculiar about our age, about the time that we live in. Look, I get it. If you came from poverty, I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying I could, wrap my mind around it. Okay. Well, a person came from poverty, grew up with nothing, hand-to-mouth existence, gets a big job. This is his only chance at really becoming wealthy and never having to worry about his next meal or paying off his mortgage. Okay, I can maybe, again, I'm not excusing it, but okay. But you're already worth 20, 30, 40 million dollars. You don't need the money, man. How are you going to spend that kind of money? It's disgusting. I'm sorry, it's disgusting. It's pure greed and pure cowardice. Dave, our Western PA correspondent in Pennsylvania. Thanks for holding, Dave. And as always, my buddy, welcome.
Good morning, sir. Jeff, always in prayers for your dad.
Thank you, Dave.
Of course. Hey, Jeff, can I start it off with a good, not a joke, but it's truth, but I thought God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, buddy. No, well, that's okay. Hey, Jeff.
I missed the memo. I'm sorry. Yeah, Mike, sorry, Dave, forgive me. Dave, I missed the memo on that one.
Oh, really? Yeah. Where did that come from? I think that came from Batman Begins or something. Yeah, I remember that. I missed the memo. Hey, Jeff. Anyways, let me tell you something. Winning. On an unrelated note, Jeff, I did send you something in Messenger about USA Aid when I was in Iraq both times. Did you get a chance to read it?
I did. Unbelievable stuff, Dave. Unbelievable stuff.
Jeff, and they were connected with Kellogg Brown and Root, which is a subsidiary of Dick Cheney's Halliburton. Another connection there. But anyway, Jeff, we won't let the truth get in the way. But back on topic. I'm sorry. I just want to know if you got that. Jeff, anyways, my cousin, who's a big athlete up in Maine, again, a French-Canadian connection, she was a big female hockey player, and she was on a team. I think it was like I don't know if it was an intramural team, but there was, I think it was co-ed, but she got.
Dave, do me a favor. Hang on. I think, in other words, she got crushed right in a check. She just got absolutely slammed in a check. Dave, please hang on. I want you to complete that story. I'll take more of your calls next. 648 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. All right, let's go right back to Dave, our Western PA correspondent. He's obviously of French-Canadian ancestry, and he's got... Dave, was that a cousin of yours or a friend of yours who was playing hockey up in Vermont? I think on a co-ed team you mentioned, and we got cut off just at this part of the story. but you said she took a crushing check. I assume it was from a male player. Dave, please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, Jeff, it's actually my first cousin. She's a few years younger than me. This happened a few years ago, long before the DEI stuff, but we already knew it was prevalent in the liberals anyway, Jeff. But, yeah, so she was skating, and I think it was a practice they were doing, and one of the guys thought they were smart, so she got checked. It was a playful check, but she got nailed. I think he left his feet, and he went in with his shoulder. But anyway, she got up and shrugged it off because she's a tough chick. So the very next face-off, she went over to him and cross-checked him right across the back, and he fell right on his fanny. It was the funniest thing, Jeff. No, but she was a tough cookie. She's a tough cookie. But, Jeff, anyways, I want to say, may I say good morning to President Trump? Could I say good morning to President Trump?
So she cross-checked him? She went over and just cross-checked him and put him right on his rear end. Good for her. She stood up for herself. Good for her. All right, please, go ahead, Dave.
It was more out of fun than anything. But, Jeff, can I say good morning to President Trump and Caroline Leavitt?
Yes, of course.
They're awesome. And I want to thank God for what they've done for our country so far. And if I'm not mistaken, Jeff, she's a New Hampshire girl, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. No, she ran for Congress. She was on this show. We helped her win the primary. We almost got her over the top in her election. And so she's been a very good friend of the Kuhner Report. We're going to try to have her on. I know she's very busy now, first couple of weeks in her new role as press secretary, but we're going to try to have Caroline on. Dave, okay, I think we lost you. Okay, Dave, have a nice day, and as always, thank you for your call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Monica, speaking of New Hampshire, in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Monica, and welcome.
Hello, how are you today?
Very good, very good. How are you, Monica?
Well, to give you a little interest, I have the same birthday as Trump, not that that matters, but I read a lot about him, and I used to be a model, too. My pictures were in Trump Plaza. But anyway, to make a long story, I do not agree with this transgender stuff. I do stuff for people every day in work, and I see the parents changing the kids over. Either that or they're adopted, and somebody's changing them. I've got 3 sons. I wouldn't want that to happen. And then when I go to a bathroom, it says, for both people. I don't agree with that. You bring a little girl in there, or the little girl goes in there and somebody's in there, or vice versa. I know people want to be open-minded. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's like, it's getting to be too much. And they cry to get whatever they want.
Well, you're right.
They harass you.
Look,
they harass you.
Yeah, they harass you. They persecute you. They hound you. They try to destroy you professionally, personally. Look, it's becoming extreme and radical. That's what's happening. And look, I've made this proposal. It's a very reasonable proposal. Create a separate league for transgendered people. If they feel that strongly about it, okay, we can create a third league. Women's sports, male sports, and then if you want a non-binary, whatever you want to call it, sports league, that's fine. Okay, I'm more than happy. If you want gender-neutral bathrooms, we'll establish gender-neutral bathrooms. But no, you see, and this is where Nancy Mace, I think, has been dynamite on this issue, Congresswoman from South Carolina. No, and it's mostly men, like it's 99% men. There's a few women, but it's mostly men who want to get into women's locker rooms and women's bathrooms and into women's sports. And as she put it, keep your schlong, keep your private parts out of my bathroom. Like, I don't, Nancy Mace, I don't think we're asking for too much. When I go to the bathroom, I don't want to have to see your private parts as a man. It makes me, she's a rape survivor. There are many women who've been victims of sexual assault and rape to begin with, but even if they weren't, I'm sorry. It's an assault on their dignity. It's an assault on their privacy. They should not have to be faced with this issue. It's ridiculous. So you want a gender-neutral bathroom? Fine. But you see, they don't want to use the gender-neutral bathroom. They don't want a third league. Because I suspect many of them are trolling. I really do. I think many of them figure, hey, I can get an easy trophy, get easy college free tuition or scholarship. It's a scam. and I'll get my jollies by exposing myself to these women in locker rooms or in showers or in bathrooms. Honestly, that's what I think it is, Monica. Ultimately, these people are either grifters or perverts. Final word to you.
The whole society. I got a new granddaughter. I raised all boys. None of my boys did anything like that and confronted me, because I feel you're born a man or a woman. Why would you want to change that? You're going to have health problems. You're going to have psychological problems. I mean, I don't believe it. I think they just do it for attention, to be honest with you.
Oh,
like
I
you
think
said,
a lot
they
of it
want
is
to get
that.
scholarships. They want all these things. They think they're going to get. They can't have a baby, so why do it?
That's an excellent point. Well, that's the thing.
And I don't agree with it.
This is the phenomenon. Monica, think about this, okay? You're completely right. They're putting male tampons in men's bathrooms. Tampons in men's bathrooms. That's how insane this has gotten. And when you tell a liberal or a Democrat, a biological man cannot get pregnant, it's impossible, their rebuttal, their response is bigotry, discrimination, that's transphobia. No, that's reality. Hello? So, look, they've lost this debate. They know they've lost this debate. And I think this is the crown jewel. Yesterday's executive order is the exclamation point to liberals losing this debate, because they never had a leg to stand on. Monica, thank you very, very much for that call. Okay, let me pivot. Promises made, promises kept. Really, that's the theme of today's show. What did Trump vow during the campaign? That he was going to get tough on criminals, crime in general, and he was also going to get tough on illegals, both. Well, listen now to what Trump is proposing. Now, I love this idea, but liberals are dead set against it. Many in the media now are ferociously opposed, and even some Republicans say they are very, very squishy, very uncertain about this proposal. It's leaving a bad taste in their mouth. So, President Trump is now proposing, and he's in the process of actually doing, two things. Number one, as you know, we have a massive detention facility in Guantanamo Bay. That's where we held a lot of the terrorists under Bush and the war on terror for many years. Well, it has the capacity to hold, it depends which article you read, but basically 20 to 30,000 violent criminal inmates. Now, that's not peanuts. Trump has now said, as part of his deportation orders, he wants to send some of the most violent criminal illegal aliens to Guantanamo Bay and have them detained and held there and get processed there if their home countries are defiant or putting up a fight and they don't want to receive them. So they go, as we're negotiating to send them all back, we're going to hold them at Guantanamo Bay. So if Colombia makes a stink, I'm just using Colombia as an example, or Venezuela makes a stink, or any other country makes a stink, we're going to hold them there until we iron out the negotiations and then put them on a plane, and then we're going to send them back. Now, he's also twinned it with another proposal. And this has got liberals even more upset than Gitmo, if you can imagine. So, on the other proposal, Marco Rubio has signed an agreement with the president of El Salvador. Bukele is his last name. Hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Bukele has now said, look, all we have in our country are MS-13 gangbangers. We have drug traffickers, sex traffickers, human traffickers, the worst of the worst, violent criminals, marauding, rampaging. We know how to deal with them. We're used to them. And he has now won a massive re-election landslide because he's been cracking down on crime in El Salvador. And what has been the key? He's building these huge supermax prisons. Okay, these are maximum security prisons. Believe me, there are no comforts there. You get a little bit of food, you get a little bit of water, and that's it. That's it. Nobody wants to go into Bekele's Supermax prisons. It's not a hotel. There's no cable. There's no working out gear. There's no computers. There's no iPads. There's no ice cream night. You get the picture, okay? It's real hard time. Well, President Trump has now, through Marco Rubio, done a deal with El Salvador in which Rubio and Trump are now saying, for not just illegal aliens, criminals in our own country, the worst of the worst, murderers, rapists, those that for fun push people off the subway plank in front of a subway car or train and watch them for their, for kicks, get killed on the subway. Psychopaths, sociopaths. He says, you know what? El Salvador will imprison them, jail them, at a fraction of the cost that it takes for us to imprison them here in the United States, and we're only going to pay them a small fee. So we're going to save a lot of money. It's about $40,000 a year per inmate if you incarcerate them here in the United States. If we ship them to El Salvador, you throw in the transport fees, you throw in that small fee for holding them, you're lucky if it's $10,000. So Trump is saying we're going to be saving $30,000 per inmate, but we're also going to be kicking them out of our country. We don't want them here. We don't need them here. We don't want these kind of people in our country, in our prisons. We want them out. And Trump's argument is this is the ultimate deterrent. This is the ultimate deterrent. If criminals now know I'm either going to be sent off to Gitmo, where the conditions are harsh, or even worse, that Supermax prison in El Salvador, where the conditions are brutal, absolutely, it's basically a dungeon. That conditions there are absolutely brutal. Maybe I shouldn't push this. I'm not going to push this person off the subway plank. I don't think I'm going to rape that woman. It's not worth it. 50 years in that dungeon for 10 minutes of raping a woman. No. No. Listen now to President Trump. And by the way, the libs, when I say they're going ballistic, they're losing their minds. They're saying this is primitive, this is barbaric, this is medieval. How dare you treat criminals this way? How dare you treat our people this way? Roll cut 100. Mike.
Secretary Rubio announced a deal this week that would allow potentially American citizens for criminals to be put in a different country. Is that something you're looking to do?
No, I didn't know that he announced that yet, but if he did, it's fine, yeah. We have hardened criminals, horrible people. You see them pushing people into subways. The train is coming last week. Guy walking around, just sees somebody waiting for the train. Train's coming 40 miles an hour, and he gets pushed into the subway. And that happens all the time. These are sick people.
Now, he's saying, look, you're talking about psychopaths. Okay? When you shoot little children in the head at point blank range, when you push people into subway trains for kicks, because you find it funny. There's something so depraved, so seriously wrong with you. There's no question anymore of rehabilitation. And so, what do you want us to do with these people? Do you want them to just hang around our prison system and eventually maybe even get out here on American soil? Listen now to Trump. Send them to that Supermax prison in El Salvador or Guantanamo Bay, whichever, whatever is available. But if we're going to do El Salvador, instead of us paying $40,000, and the key is, and they're probably going to kill more in prison, or if they get out, they're going to kill here. So instead of having them on the loose in our country, send them to El Salvador. Pay them a small fee, $10,000, $5,000, whatever it is. We save money. They know how to deal with hardened criminals, psychopaths like that. Everybody wins. Listen to Trump. Roll cut 100A, Mike.
If we could get them out of our country, we have other countries that would take them. It's no different than a prison system, except it would be a lot less expensive, and it would be a great deterrent. send them to other countries. If we could go a step further, in other words, we're talking about getting the criminals out of our country that come in through other countries illegally, right? The illegal migrants, as I call them. Well, we have people that are just as bad as them in our country. If we could get them out, I'd be very happy.
You see, now that's when they exploded, right? So he then said, no, I'm not just talking about, the quote-unquote, the migrants, i.e. the illegals. He goes, I'm not just talking about Tren de Aragua, MS-13, these drug traffickers, child molesters, rapists. He goes, no. I mean, them, I have no conscience whatsoever sending them off to Gitmo or a Supermax prison in El Salvador and let them rot in prison there. But no, even the criminals in our own country, American citizens. No, why should they get all these comforts when they commit the most brutal, heinous, sadistic crimes imaginable? Listen to Trump. Now, at this point, he's got a full-on rebellion in the press corps. I mean, they're yelling, screaming, shouting, hollering. I mean, they're losing their minds. I'm telling you, they're losing their minds. Roll cut 100B, Mike.
Said that he wanted you to pay a fee for that. Would you pay that?
Well, it's a very small fee compared to what we pay to private prisons.
But under what?
And a very, very small fee. I don't know. We'll have to find that out legally. I'm just saying, if we had the legal right to do it, I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't know if we do or not. We're looking at that right now.
Okay. I want to play one more cut, and then I want to open it up to the phone lines. There's a couple lines open if you want to jump on. Now's the time to do it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Is Trump right? Is Trump right? Let's take question one. Should we be sending illegals now? Okay, for question number one is about illegals. Should we be sending illegal alien murderers, gangbangers, rapists to be held, incarcerated, confined, detained at Guantanamo Bay and at a Supermax prison in El Salvador for a fee? The left is saying these are quote-unquote Trump's concentration camps. I'm not kidding. They're already saying this is grounds for impeachment. It's Hitler. These are his death camps. These are his torture chambers. This is a concentration camp. Okay? But now Trump is saying a second question. Forget illegals. Yes, illegals. But if we can do it legally, if this is legal and constitutional, I send American citizens there too. The worst of the worst, the most vicious of the vicious. And he gives examples. He goes, I'm just going to give you examples from just the last week. And you tell me if we want these kind of people in our country, in our society, and in our prisons. Roll cut 100C, Mike.
If you take the shooters, the people that hit old ladies in the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that walk down the street, the people that you see it, the people that take out a gun and shoot you for no reason at all. If we could get these animals out of our country and put them in a different country under the supervision of somebody that made a relatively small fee to maintain these people, because you know what? These are criminals. You call them hardened criminals. They've been in jail 40 times. There's one 42 times. And every time the person gets out, it's a he. Every time he gets out, he commits another crime within 24 hours. And it's a heinous crime. It's a rough crime. We don't want these people in our country either.
Is it me? I'm like, this guy's making complete sense. I'm like, amen, brother. Again, agree, disagree. He's right. The recidivism rate is what they call it, right? The repeat offender is through the roof. So we put him in our jail system. We feed him. We clothe him. $40,000 a year. Then they come out. And then he's right. Within a couple days or a couple weeks or a month, they kill or rape or molest or God knows what they do again. And Trump is like, why do we do this to our own people? Those are innocent citizens that they're killing or raping or molesting or whatever. We don't want them. We don't need them. In other words, there are some crimes and some people that commit such heinous acts of evil that are so depraved that really they're sociopaths or psychopaths, whatever, take your pick. They have no morality, no conscience whatsoever. They will kill someone for no reason without blinking an eye. They will terrorize and kill an old woman for nothing. They will throw someone in front of the subway because they think it's fun. They will rape a child and want to do it again. They will rape and kill women because it's sport. And Trump is saying, why are we allowing them in our prison systems, giving them 3 hot meals a day, clothes on their back, cable television, workout equipment, library, I'm not kidding, porn subscriptions, I swear to you, okay? Access to iPads and computers. I could go on and on. And he's saying, we're treating him like we put him almost like it's a hotel. When we could send him to one of the worst supermax prisons in the world and let everybody know, you commit a heinous crime on American soil, you are going to pay, and you're going to pay very dearly. To me, a murderer deserves a brutal supermax prison. A gangbanger, a drug trafficker, a rapist, a child molester, they deserve a supermax prison in El Salvador or a Guantanamo Bay. But that's me. So I want to ask you, should violent criminal illegals be shipped off and be held at Guantanamo Bay? Or is that a form of a concentration camp? Is that a form of torture, as the left is claiming? And number 2, in terms of dealing with the epidemic of violent crime, do you agree with Trump? Should we send American criminals, U.S. citizens, the worst of the worst, should they be flown to El Salvador and held in one of the worst prisons and dungeons in the world for a fee? I love both ideas, but that's me. I want to hear from you. Yes or no. 617-266-6868. Couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Mike, how much time left? I hear the music. Okay, that's my cue. I'll take all of your calls, I promise. Is this too radical a proposal? Or has Trump hit the nail on the head again? 718 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay. To Supermax. Should we Supermax our criminals here in the United States and illegal criminals, violent criminals in El Salvador? Trump says he loves the idea. What say you? Morris in Boston. Thanks for holding, Morris, and welcome.
Hey,
Morris?
Jeff, it's Morris. How are you?
Morris, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Morris. The floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Hey, what's happening? Good morning, Jeff. Hey,
good morning.
Tough start to the morning, Jeff. I'm racing to the proctologist, and I'm running late here. I'm trying to get my Schumer checked, but it's not looking good. Hey, listen, Jeff. You know, what I love about Trump is he's all about deterrence. He does things, for example, what he's doing in Gaza. He doesn't plan on building hotels in Gaza. He knows that the Saudis, Jordan, and the rest of the Middle East, Egypt, they don't want the big Satan in there. They already got the little Satan. They don't want the big one in there. It's the same thing that he's doing here. I think it's a brilliant idea. My wife works in a prison. It's a country club. If I was homeless, I'd commit a crime to go to the prison that she works at. They've got iPads, 3 square meals a day, any medical attention they need. And Guantanamo Bay, compared to prisons in El Salvador, Guatemala, and those other countries, Guantanamo Bay is a country club as well. Sending violent criminals to Guantanamo from other countries who were released from high security prisons there, that's a step up for these guys. So the idea of sending them, I don't know if you've ever seen any specials on El Salvadorian jails, but they're not pretty. And I think it's a great deterrent. I mean, you look right they're brutal. You don't even get a bed until you've been there about 10 years and fight your way for a mattress. But I love seeing him making the media's head spin. I love seeing Chuck Schumer out there screaming at the top of his lungs as his little money train is going to be coming to an end, and quite possibly he's going to be getting indicted, hopefully. And you're 100% right. You've got animals hitting old ladies over the head, with baseball bats, pushing people on the subway tracks. These people have no right to be in this country. Even if they're citizens, they have no right. Send them the hell out of here, and let's never see them again.
Morris, you're a brother from a different mother. You and I are so simpatico. Honestly, it's not even funny. Morris, let me just ask you this. And again, look, you know me, I'm zero tolerance on crime. I'm a law and order guy all the way, okay? But if someone robs an old lady, not that you should ever rob an old lady, but he says, whatever, I'm a drug addict, okay? I needed my fix. So I stole the old lady's purse. It's wrong. It's disgusting. It's obscene. Please don't get me wrong. But okay, it's rational. Do you understand? You can wrap your mind. You go, okay, well, he needed the drugs. He's an addict. So he grabbed her purse. He snatched her purse, stole the money, and then shot himself up with heroin. Okay, I get it. Maybe if we get him drug rehab, maybe he can be rehabilitated. You understand? But when you walk up behind an old lady, think of really the kind of person you have to be. An innocent, vulnerable senior citizen. And you take out a baseball bat, as recently happened in New York, and you smash her skull for no reason whatsoever. Literally, no reason. And you're laughing, if you've ever seen the Batman movies, like the Joker. With this maniacal laugh as he's spinning the baseball bat in his hand. And then smashes her head again. And then smashes her head again. And then smashes her head again. You are, I gotta be careful, I don't want to swear. You are an effing animal. You're an effing savage. I don't want to pay for your 3 square meals a day. I don't want to pay for your iPads. I don't want to pay for your ice cream Fridays. I don't want to pay for your workout equipment. I don't want to pay for your porn inside the jail. Go to El Salvador, because that's where honestly, that's where he deserves to be, with fellow other animals. Morris, am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right, Jeff. And let's not forget the guy that lit a woman on fire recently in a New York subway. I mean, that guy, honestly, and I have to watch my French too here, but somebody should have put a bullet in his head right there and done us all a favor. When these criminals were being released, especially during 2020, I mean, I really say it got worse when all these purple-haired lunatics were out burning down innocent people's homes and businesses. After they looted them, they burned them down, and many of them in black neighborhoods. And nothing happened to these people. Now, criminals see that like, geez, these guys are burning federal courthouses and police stations and nothing's happening? Wow. Now I can start slugging women on the subway. I mean, I don't know if you remember, it was like a trend for a while there with white women being punched in the face in New York City. People just walk up and punch them in the face.
Yeah, the knockout game. Morris, it was called the knockout game.
Nothing happened. They'd get arrested, released that day, only to do it again. You have to have deterrence, especially in the society we are in right now. We've let it run amok for 4 years and let these people get away with murder. When I was a kid, I was the youngest of 5 boys. I watched my dad punish my older brothers, and I said, "Oh, I don't want any of that." and it deterred me from doing dumb things. I might have gotten a little more street smart from watching it and learned how to not get caught doing certain things. But man, there was some deterrence. Like when it came to grades, respecting your teachers, respecting your elders, and all that. Oh, there was zero tolerance in my house, and I would watch I'd hear the screams coming from upstairs, and not that you should beat your kids, but it deterred me, and
he put you on notice, right, Morris?
He was a great man. And Jeff, I want to say this: I'm really sorry to hear about your dad. My dad passed away in 2019, and I think about him every day, and it's the permanency of it that kills me. That's what makes me crazy.
I agree. Thank you, Morris. Thank you. As always, outstanding call. Really, outstanding call. Morris, thank you very much for that call. My dad was the same. He was zero tolerance in the house. And he was a great man. He was a wonderful man, big heart, but he laid down the law. He was a disciplinarian, and I'm telling you, it worked. Morris is right. We respected our teachers. We got, fairly good grades. I got better and better as I got older, but, we respected authority. We respected our mother. That's for sure. So no one's going to tell me that deterrence doesn't work. It works. Now, I'm not saying go beat your kids, obviously, but there's nothing wrong with a little bit of discipline. Well, for some people, like these murderers, or, lighting someone on fire and you're laughing, I agree with Morris. You've lost your rights. I don't want you in my country anymore. Get out. Agree, disagree. Your call's next. 7:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Trump now says violent criminal illegals, MS-13, Tren de Aragua, drug traffickers, sex traffickers, many of them are going to be sent to Guantanamo Bay. Liberals are now saying these are modern-day concentration camps. I say they're insane. What say you? And Trump now has signed a deal, or more accurately, Rubio on behalf of Trump, for a supermax prison, a massive prison, maximum security in El Salvador, for a fee that they will be taking in criminal illegals that we deport if other countries don't want to take them. But Trump now says he's even willing to send American citizens who have committed and been convicted of the most heinous, gruesome crimes imaginable. Raping children, mass murder, lighting people on fire, things we've been seeing at the New York subway, horror show after horror show. He says, we don't need them. We don't want them. Why should we have to pay for them? Send them to El Salvador. I agree with Trump. Do you? 617-266-6868. Let me just play the cut, if you don't mind, one more time, because I think this is the heart of his argument, and I find it very hard for liberals to try to refute this, because his logic is not just, to me, irrefutable. It has a real power to it. Roll cut 100, and by the way, common sense, just full of common sense. Roll cut 100C, Mike.
If you take the shooters, the people that hit old ladies in the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that walk down the street, the people that you see it, the people that take out a gun and shoot you for no reason at all. If we could get these animals out of our country and put them in a different country under the supervision of somebody that made a relatively small fee to maintain these people, because you know what? These are criminals. You call them hardened criminals. They've been in jail 40 times. There's one 42 times. And every time the person gets out, it's a he. Every time he gets out, he commits another crime within 24 hours. And it's a heinous crime. It's a rough crime. We don't want these people in our country either.
Yeah. Seriously, he's completely right. And think about it. They keep getting let go. So they end up doing, they rape again, they kill again, they murder again, they molest again. That's the other argument Trump's making. He's like, no, man, send them to El Salvador. What do we need them for? So more people can be hurt? Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Let's go to Natalie in Lunenburg. Thanks for holding, Natalie, and welcome.
I don't know if you heard, yesterday a judge blocked Trump's order barring biological men from women's prisons. So it kind of intersects with your two topics today. That's mind-boggling. So, they'll sentence a convicted rapist to a woman's prison.
Well, that's really, Natalie, that's liberalism in a nutshell. Really, it's a mental disorder. You're completely right. They will send a rapist, a male rapist, into a woman's prison. All he's got to do is put on a wig, put some lipstick, maybe wear a dress, and say, I identify as a woman, and boom. And you know how many women he's going to sexually assault in there? How many women he's going to rape in there? I mean, it's disgusting. And aren't you sick and tired of these fascists in black robes constantly obstructing the duly elected president of the United States? Like the libs go on about democracy, democracy, democracy. What about the will of the people? Trump campaigned on all of this. Trump has a mandate to do all of this. But some crazy moonbat judge, you know, because their daughter or son is transgender or whatever, or wants to get, you know, their portrait up for the resistance, la résistance, the resistance of the month, and suddenly they block a lawful executive order? I mean, enough is enough. But Natalie, please, I'm cutting you off. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Bellyaching about Elon Musk not being an elected person, even though he's appointed by the man who won the election, but let that go. These judges, I didn't vote for them. I don't want men in women's prisons. But that's just me. But I am just concerned, as much as I want them to throw the book at all these scumbags, and I don't personally have a problem with them going to El Salvador if it saves the taxpayer money. That being said, I do see that there may be serious grounds under the Ninth Amendment to challenge this as a violation of the Ninth Amendment ban against cruel and unusual punishment. But being a strict constructionist, I think when they wrote that, they were referring to things like being drawn and quartered or burned at the stake or things like that, being sent to a prison doing hard time. That's probably what you had in colonial times. You know, they didn't have TVs and gym workout equipment and all that other stuff back then.
Well, you make an excellent point, Natalie. Look, in colonial times, when they wrote up, you know, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, prison was no joke. In many ways, what El Salvador has today is, you know, what they had at the time when they wrote the Constitution. You know, you get bread and water, and you throw them in a dungeon, and, you know, and good luck. You know, and they were dirty, filthy conditions. That's why they had such low crime. Because nobody wanted to go to jail. Because it was hard time. Now, they didn't whip you. They didn't torture you. You know, they didn't beat you. But basically, you had no amenities whatsoever. You had a very small cell. It was a dirty, dingy cell. And basically, bread and water. And, you know, thank the Lord. Be grateful you have that. So honestly, I think, you know, if you were to go back in history, if you go in a time machine and go to Jefferson or Franklin or Madison or, you know, whoever, and say, hey, you know, look at this Supermax in El Salvador. You think that's cruel and unusual? They'd be like, hey, dude, that's what we have now. So hold on. We don't have that anymore. Oh, no, you got to see what we give our prisoners. They'd be horrified. I'm telling you, they're turning in their grave. They're like, that's not what we fought the American Revolution for. We didn't fight to turn prisons into hotels. Natalie, final word to you.
Yeah, I just wonder, is El Salvador, are they going to have women's prisons? Because I think we're going to see an influx of like 90% of the prisoners are going to identify as female and not be sent down there.
Natalie, outstanding call as always. Thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Stuart in Boston. Thanks for holding, Stuart, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
so
Stuart.
I love what Trump says. In my heart, I know he's right, and I feel that it would have the effect he wants to have, but I'm concerned, and I'll tell you what my concerns are. The Eighth Amendment prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. I don't think it's cruel and unusual to send somebody to El Salvador in and of itself, but then the government loses control over how they're treated. Now, I don't really care. You know, if you committed multiple crimes and they're violent, but I think it requires a constitutional amendment to send them out of the country. And I also think that the second part of it is, once somebody's committed multiple violent, heinous crimes, what we should do is have a constitutional amendment that we can take away their citizenship. The second problem with Trump's plan is just because I send somebody to El Salvador to prison, they haven't lost their citizenship. When they get out, they're going to have the right to come back. You need a constitutional amendment to dislodge their citizenship. And I would be in favor of it. Frankly, I would be in favor of it. I love what he wants to do, but I don't think we can do it without some additional laws that are passed.
Well, Stuart, instead of going, whole hog as you're suggesting, which is interesting, of, full constitutional amendment, why not have Rubio finalize the deal? It's going to be, the ACLU is going to challenge it in a millisecond. Okay, there's the signature. By the time it's I-O for Rubio, he goes, he finishes the O. The ink is not even dry yet, and bang, the ACLU is going to take it right away to court, right? So, let's take it to the Supreme Court. Instead of saying constitutional, let's see what the Supreme Court says. And if the Supreme Court says, yes, you can send them to El Salvador, then watch the deterrent effect. I think just that fact alone, you don't even have to send many of them. You just send a few of them. And everyone's going to be like, no, I really don't want to go to El Salvador. I don't want to be in that dungeon. Crime is going to drop like a stone. So let's do a deal, have it hashed out in the courts, have the Supreme Court issue a ruling, and let's say they say yes, maybe they say no, then the issue is moot, obviously. But if they say yes, send the mass murderer over there. Send a serial rapist over there, like someone, the guy that burned that old lady literally on fire, just lit her on fire. Okay? Send that animal over there. So there's no debate that this person's really sick and sadistic. Couple of high profile cases, send them there. I think a lot of criminals are going to say, you know what? I'm going to keep my lighter in my pants. Brian, thank you for that call. 7:48 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. My apologies to Stuart. I don't know why I called him Brian. Just so that everybody knows, to the audience, I have a very bad case of the flu. It's been a couple days now. I got it from Ava. She got it from someone at school, passed it off to me. And last couple days have been brutal. High fever, aches and pains, sore throat, constant coughing. Anyway, so I'm trying to keep my energy levels up. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit, to be honest, and my head is really congested. So if I make mistakes like your name or something, please don't take it personally. I really belong in bed. I'm really sick. But there's just so much happening, so important. And these are our victories, my friends. We worked so hard to get to this point, and we should be taking pride and joy in all of these accomplishments now that Trump is racking up, and he's racking up a tremendous amount. And that's just in barely 2 weeks alone. So I'm going to try to power through and get through the whole show today, God willing. 617-266-6868. So Stuart, thank you. Very, very good call. And so Stuart says, maybe we need a constitutional amendment. He could be right. I'm saying, let's at least take it to the Supreme Court. And maybe you just send one or two high-profile, defendants, criminals, convicted criminals. Send them to El Salvador. You don't have to even send many of them, just a few of them. And I think the message will be sent. You don't want to go to El Salvador, so knock it off. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Okay, let's go to Steve in the great state of Kentucky. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Good morning. Hope you get to feeling better.
Thank you, Steve.
I've got to disagree with this, and I'll tell you why.
Yes,
Trump is not going to be president forever. And could you imagine if they had these laws on the books over the last 4 years, how many of us would have ended up in Guantanamo or down in El Salvador? Because the government, they're evil when it comes to things like that. The 68 gun law. If you were convicted of a violent felony, you were no longer allowed to possess a handgun. Today, it's any felony. Any felony? Child support, anything. You lose your right to protect yourself. And I think people need to understand that the the government's evil, and they will take advantage of this. It's a double-edged sword, Jeff.
Well, Steve, I didn't even think of that. That's a very, very good point. That's an excellent point. So I think, to be honest, if we're going to do this, I agree with you. I think it has to be very clear, very clarified. You have to lay out a clear definition. Hardened criminals convicted of mass murder, rape, pedophilia, molesting children, burning people alive. It can't be for so-called petty crimes or crimes against, disclosing classified information, or, that's how they try to get us, or on sort of hate crimes. It has to be for the worst possible crimes. But look, Steve, as you're talking, I think you're making a very good point. I mean, where did it get to the point in our country, in our society, where our prisons have become hotels? I mean, this is what I think this is his frustration. It's like, people are getting released dozens of times. And New York is an example, but Boston is the same, Chicago, LA, Atlanta. It's just, it's heinous. It's disgusting. A guy will come in, murder a mother and her child, and maybe do 15 years. If we're lucky, maybe 10 with times, like if he's good in prison, and they release him and he goes out and murders again. And so that we don't have the death penalty here, that we don't have serious prison sentences here. I remember in the South for a very long time, you had to do hard labor. If you were convicted of a serious crime, you were picking cotton. And people often ask, well, how come, crime rates in Texas for so long were so low? Or Louisiana or Alabama or whatever. I'll tell you why. Because you don't want to pick cotton. Every day in that brutal heat, from 8 to 5, and you're picking cotton, it is back-breaking work. No way, hey, I'm not doing this. I'm not robbing this bank. I'm not stealing this car. I'm not going to shoot this woman. I'm not going to rape this person. No, hey, whoa. I'm not picking cotton. So what I'm saying, Steve, is I think part of this is we've been so lax, and it's really post-Black Lives Matter, post-COVID in particular. I thought Morris made a great point. What message did we send to criminals? If you burn down federal courthouses, if you burn down police stations, if you murder cops in cold blood, if you blind them, if you maim them, if you burn parts of city after city after city to the ground, nothing is going to happen to you. Nothing. And so the message they got is, it's anarchy. And that's what Biden did. He unleashed anarchy by allowing all these illegals to pour in, and these progressive DAs in predominantly blue states and blue cities have allowed anarchy to reign. And Trump he's at his wit's end. And he's scrambling for solutions. I mean, to be fair to the guy. Final word to you, Steve.
Well, it's real important that people understand that, again, Trump is not going to be there forever. And these Democrats already proved with our J6ers what they're capable of doing. And I'm against it all the way because I think it's biting off more than we could chew, and it's definitely dangerous. Have a good day, Jeff, and I hope you get to feeling better.
Thank you. A very good call, Steve. Really. Very, very good call. Okay, just very quickly. This is Mark in Medford. And Mark in Medford messaged me, and he makes a really, really good point. Jeff, please, why don't we ask the Democrats the same question? If it was primitive or barbaric for what they did to J6ers and how they were treated for doing absolutely nothing wrong. So, Jeff, they can't stand America or American citizens. It's disgusting. Mark makes an excellent point. When they were throwing American citizens in that, and it was a gulag, that gulag in Washington, D.C., solitary confinement, forgive me, no proper toilets. Again, it's the morning, I'm sorry, excrement, urine everywhere. By the way, story after story of police guards beating the J6ers. That was basically a dungeon. I mean, that could rival anything that El Salvador has, believe me. And that's what the J6ers, those were human rights abuses. So if it's conservatives or Trump supporters or J6ers, then throw them in that gulag and, lock them up and throw away the key. But if it's mass murderers, if it's convicted serial rapists, if it's convicted child molesters, it's a concentration camp, Jeff. Jeff. This is Hitler. Jeff. Now, I want to go back to Steve. I'll never forget the Patriot Act. I initially supported it, one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Because I never imagined that it would be used against innocent law-abiding citizens. So I'm always cognizant now. Be careful what you do. Never assume that your person is going to be in power. The left, the Democrats, may return to power. Don't give them weapons that they can use to eventually harass and persecute and imprison us. So I think no matter where we go with this, we got to keep this in the back of our mind. 617, and I think that's why, in the end, I think Trump, floated this trial balloon, but I think they're going to limit it to violent, criminal, illegal aliens, i.e. non-citizens. I think that's eventually where they're going to go with this. I'm almost pretty sure. So they're going to say, okay, fine, no American citizens go, but illegals, especially the worst of the worst, send them to El Salvador. Bye-bye. John in Dunstable. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff, for taking the call.
My pleasure, John.
Jeff, the bottom line here is that all illegals have to go. That's what we voted President Trump in. They're destroying our country. Now, Jeff, you got to. I believe 100% what Steve just said, and he actually stole a lot of my thunder. There are people in prisons, Jeff, that shouldn't be there, and that's a fact. And look what President Trump went through. They were saying, they accused him with these judges of raping that whack job from I don't know how many years ago. That one that loved sex. I forget her name and whatnot. But I mean,
E. Jean Carroll.
Yeah, I mean, look what happened to him. They could do it to me. They could do it to you. They want to get rid of us. Oh, we'll send them to El Salvador. We don't need that, Jeff. We don't need that nonsense. Let's get rid of all the illegals. I mean, and your other caller that called and said that the one that threw the gasoline on the woman, a lighter fluid, whatever he used, and lit her on fire. That's what he needed. He needs death. That's what he needs. He needs gas thrown on him and lit on fire. That's what's got to happen. Not sending American citizens to foreign prisons. Jeff, say for instance they bagged you for something, and they said we're going to send him. You know how corrupt they are. We're going to send him to El Salvador. Where are you going to get a lawyer, Jeff, an American lawyer, to represent you to try to free you? What are you going to call an El Salvadorian lawyer in, or have Sandy go over there to defend you? That's what you probably would have to do. But I mean, it doesn't even make sense, Jeff. I mean,
she wouldn't defend me.
Yes, she would. Sandy's a great person.
Sandy wouldn't defend me. She'd say, you know what? He made his bed. Let him lie in it. I'm just kidding. No, John, you're making a very, very, very good point. John, I'm just curious. Look, obviously, it's just not going to fly. I agree with you, right? Look, someone deserves, you light an old lady on fire. You're sick, okay? For the job, for the hell of it. You're really sick. And that person deserves a bullet. They really do. Or they'd be lit on fire themselves. But that's not going to happen. So my question to you is this, John. What can Trump do to deal with crime, out of control, spiraling crime here in the United States? Because if you've got Alvin Bragg as the DA and Letitia James as the Attorney General in New York and Kathy Hochul, a president has limited authority. Unless there's an act passed by Congress, criminal justice reform that really brings back the death penalty, brings back harsh penalties for offenders, repeat offenders. If he can't get Congress to sign a major piece of legislation, for the most part, John, his hands are tied. What say you?
Well, Jeff, there's always been crime, and there's been Americans have done the crime, up until, recently we got all these illegals in. But the thing to do is, like I said earlier, clean them out, get rid of the illegals, and then we can deal with Alvin Bragg and Letitia James. I mean, if these people in New York want those two there, then let New York fall. All they got to do is starve them for money, and they'll get rid of them. That's all they really have to do, Jeff. Go ahead,
John.
Jeff.
John, please tune in at 8:30. Trust me, tune in at 8:30 because that's exactly what Trump is doing. He's now begun to cut federal funding to sanctuary cities. And so it's a huge development. It just broke about maybe 12, 14 hours ago. So big story. I'll be talking about it at 8:30. John, thank you very much for that call. Again, very thoughtful call. Kevin in Boston. Thanks for holding, Kevin, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff, going back to Stuart and Natalie, that's always just super terrific, going back to the original of our platform here, this unique design called America in the Constitution. To a Constitution amendment, we know for what's going on, we can't really push anything through. A week ago Friday, just to confirm the confirmation of Pete Hegseth of DOD, it was Vice President Vance that had to break the tie. And we have too many Mitch McConnells that we just cannot trust. What Trump is doing by throwing everything on the wall, and I just commend who's behind that West Wing is working around the clock, putting all this. But again, we cannot do the same thing. The status quo has to end. We need to hold our politicians that are out there, whether it be on the city streets with their rallies, calling for violence, or as with what goes on in the House floor. The parliamentarian needs to change things, and we need to be like, why is it that when we go overseas, Tokyo, Philippines, there's not a crime rate? Why is there not? Because there's punitive penalties for crossing the line. So places like Chicago, Brandon Johnson, the violent crime just spiked up by 4%, and it's already out of control. We need to hold these mayors, cities, and councilors on the local, state, and hold them accountable, and just keep on doing what Trump's doing. He doesn't give them, by the next day, what he did falls just not to the second folds. It is 2 or 3 pages deep. So I just commend what's going on and just holding people accountable and throwing it on the wall.
No, Kevin, I agree, and that's what he's doing. He's holding countries around the world accountable: Canada, Mexico, China, Ukraine, Putin. He's holding everybody accountable, and now he's holding agencies accountable. Soon he's going to be holding these blue city mayors and states accountable. He's coming after all of them. And we knew it was going to be a steep hill to climb, but he's climbing it day after day after day after day. And, you mentioned Mitch McConnell earlier. This is how bad it's gotten. Okay. This is really, I want to underline the word almost. I almost feel half sorry for him. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. There was some event that he was at. He's trying to climb a step to the podium to get to the dais where the microphone is. In front of it, it's hashtag Team Mitch. Now, I don't know who the hell is on Team Mitch, except for the lobbyists in China. Okay? So outside of the lobbyists in China, who the hell is on Team Mitch? But let that go. And he fell down. Now, he didn't fall down the stairs. He fell climbing up the stair. It was humiliating. So you can see on him, he keeps falling. In fact, they're saying now, reports are he may have bruised his face. You know? And it almost looked at one point the way his hands went up in the air as he was falling, as he was climbing up a step, and he just starts falling. I thought the guy was going to do a cartwheel. I mean, I'm not making fun of the guy. I'm just being honest. So now it's brain freezes, repeated brain freezes. Remember he fell before a couple times? He comes in all bruised up, all banged up, you know, arm in a cast or whatever. He's always banged up. He's falling downstairs. Now he's falling upstairs. Look, this is how decrepit these people have become. There's a certain point. I'm sorry. It's like Joe Biden. There's a certain point. Hey, where's his family? Dad, this is enough. And that's another thing. How many decades are you going to serve in power? Like, this is the other thing. Like, what, you need another 6 years, Dad? What's the matter? 40 years wasn't enough? What, you need another 10? So, you look at these people, and they're clinging. They're so corrupt and venal. You know, it's like Dianne Feinstein. They're wheeling around in a wheelchair. She's gone. She doesn't know her name. She doesn't know where she is. I mean, they eventually had to replace her, but you're talking about full-blown senility. And that's one of the great leaders of, I put great in air quotes, that's one of the great leaders of the Republican Party? Holy mackerel. And the only reason why, he even admitted it, he did an interview. He admitted it. He goes, people ask me, why don't I retire? Like now, like just, step aside. He goes, I haven't forgiven Trump for January 6th. So he's actually admitting, I'm here to stab him in the back. Even if it means I got to keep falling upstairs, falling downstairs, bruising my face, hurting my arm. Now they got him in a wheelchair. So now they're just hauling Mitch around in a wheelchair. Soon he's going to be falling off the wheelchair. So this is how, this is at 80 some years old. You haven't made enough money. You haven't sold your country down the river enough. So what are you clinging to power for? To just be vindictive and stick it to Trump? I mean, we need term limits. Oh my God, do we need term limits? Kevin, thank you very much for that call. I think that's the ultimate accountability. I know Trump is trying to do it, cutting off funding and holding people accountable and, with these tariffs and forcing them to make these deals and commitments. But I think ultimately you want to hold these politicians as feet to the fire, term limits. Otherwise, they're going to be like Biden, McConnell, Feinstein, Mazie Hirono. I could go on. Mitt Romney. And they think forever. Like, really, if they could be till 120, they would. If they could live that long, they would. They would they'd be there forever. It's a 100-year tenure. It's a century. No, if you haven't served a century, you haven't done public service. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Walter in Marlborough. Thanks for holding, Walter, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
Hi. Good. How are you, Walter?
I'm well. Listen, my condolences about your dad.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Walter. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Just a few thoughts here. First of all, I support I'm a vet, by the way. I support sending the illegals down, the ones that are really awful down south, into those prisons in other nations. So fine. That'll save us money. That'll deal with a lot of issues and what have you. And, of course, what Trump's doing, which is building the wall. But really, if you look at it, our mess that we have is our mess. The reality is we, the people, haven't voted and been engaged for 70 years. We trusted everybody, and we got the train wreck that we've got because we haven't been engaged. I read an article in a voting rag. This was halfway through Obama's second term. And basically what it said is if you take all the voters, people of age, legal to vote, not a felon and such, 82.5 points, plus or minus 0.5% of American voters in that category haven't voted for 50 years with elections. State, local, federal, special elections. Someone died or something. So really, it's a stewardship issue. We have not been good stewards of our nation. So we're getting the train wreck that we deserve. Now, we're in a constitutional republic. We can handle.
Walter, you're making a phenomenal point about voter apathy. Can you please hang on, Walter? I'm up against a hard break. I want to come right back to Walter. I think he's put his finger on something very important. Don't touch that dial. 8:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's have some fun, Kuhner Country. The poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Should hardened American criminals, not illegals, okay, I know they want to send illegals, obviously, but we're not talking illegals now. Should hardened U.S. citizen criminals, okay, U.S. criminals, should they be sent to the Supermax prison in El Salvador? A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in National ER. You can also vote via X. I was very active again last night on X. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in National ER, at the Kuhner Report. Lines are loaded. Heidi in Drake-it. Thanks for holding, Heidi, and welcome.
Jeff, so I'm just wondering if you can make me understand. I'm a little confused, and it kills me to say anything negative about Trump. Love him. But I'm confused that it feels kind of hypocritical that if we take an American who's a bad boy into their country, isn't that what, like, we didn't want any of their bad people here? Now, let me say that my late husband was a correction officer. My son-in-law is a correction officer. My son was a correction officer. And I would love nothing more than our baddest boys out of the prisons and sent over there, sure. But is it hypocritical that we've been wanting to, how do I say this? We didn't want, when they were emptying out their prisons, we they're emptying out the prisons, they're coming to the USA, and now I feel like that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be emptying out our baddest boys and sending it over there.
Well, Heidi, the short answer is no. We're not being hypocritical, really, for two reasons. Number one, let's say Venezuela. I'm just going to use Venezuela as the example, because that was the clearest. Where Maduro, that socialist dictator, that's, thug, that strongman, he just opened up his prisons and his mental institutions and said, guys, go up, El Norte, go to the United States. Don't stop until you hit the U.S. border. Now, they came into our country illegally, and it's not as if they were sent to our prisons for us to, incarcerate them and detain them and hold them. No, they came into the general population. They just came into our country and they started to murder, rape, pillage, rampage here. What Trump is talking about is a deal. In other words, it's got the express permission of the sovereign government of El Salvador. So it's not us forcing this on El Salvador. In fact, the one that actually suggested the idea, this is not a Trump, yes, it's a Trump proposal here in America. But the one, Rubio a couple days ago, to give you the backstory, went to El Salvador. And so he met, and they were talking about illegal immigration. And how El Salvador was going to cut off now all illegals coming in through Latin and Central America. And then the conservative president of El Salvador, Bukele is his last name, he said, I got these Supermax prisons because he won on a law and order platform. He won with a massive re-election, a landslide. He has brought crime down in El Salvador by huge numbers. And he goes, we got a lot of space there. I mean, a lot of space. Rubo's like, really? Yeah. He goes, if you guys will give us a fee, 5,000, 10,000, we can negotiate the number. We'll take the illegals. And then Rubio and Trump started to talk about it, and Trump said, well, ask him, would you take Americans? You know, like American murderers and rapists. And Bukele said, we'll take whatever you want to send us. So the government had the express permission that they want us to send these, you know, people, these criminals to them. So it was a government-to-government arrangement. And we're not sending them into El Salvador just through the border and they start killing everybody. They're going to be in handcuffs. They're going to be on a plane. They're going to be flown there in a cargo plane. And they're going to be transferred right away into a prison, into a supermax prison. So it's completely the opposite of what they've been doing to our country. Am I making any sense here, Heidi?
You are. And I understood the whole, you know, prison to prison. You made that clear. The other question I have, and thank you so much, because, again, it pains me to say anything negative. If you could clear up the Palestinians, how Trump now wants to take that over, correct?
Well, he kind of walked it back after the blowback. I'll be honest, his people listened to this show. There's several other shows. And it was just such overwhelming negative reaction, you know, from the callers. But I'm not saying it's only this show. It was other shows, but they listened and they went to him and said, Mr. President, this is not flying. So he's kind of walking it back a little bit. He's saying we're not going to spend any U.S. taxpayer dollars, none, and we're not going to send a single U.S. troop. So if you're not going to spend any taxpayer dollars and you're not going to send a single U.S. troop, how can you really take control of Gaza? And so now Trump's people are saying, look, they just want Jordan and Egypt and Saudi Arabia and these other very wealthy countries, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, step up to the plate, for God's sake, for once. And, you know, they're swimming in money and help rebuild Gaza and tell these Hamas leaders to blank off. You know, get new leadership, cut a deal with Israel, and let's knock this off once and for all. So Trump used it as leverage, but apparently now he's cooled on the idea of taking over Gaza. Am I making any sense, Heidi?
It did, because I felt like it's kind of like the same thing, that we were taking those people and we're going to force them into other countries, and those countries, I feel, would have felt what we felt. Those.
Yeah, no, I hear you. No, that's a very good point, Heidi. That's an excellent point. So I got to tell you, I spoke to Grace after the show yesterday, and I felt the temperature of the audience, and I said, I think Trump's going to walk this one back. I've never seen MAGA say no, like spontaneously like that. 8:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, as I teased at 8 o'clock with one of the callers, big, huge breaking story, and it goes beautifully with our theme of this show, promises made, promises kept. Now, Pam Bondi, this is now the absolute latest, as you know, has now been confirmed as Trump's attorney general. She's now the top dog at DOJ. God bless her. She now, listen to this, has ordered a pause, massive, cutting all federal funding to sanctuary cities. And in particular, she has now given an explicit order from the Department of Justice telling these particular sanctuary city mayors and governors, Michelle Wu of Boston, Maura Healey, the governor of Massachusetts, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, Brandon Johnson, he's a real crazy. Of all of them, I think he's the craziest. The Moonbat mayor of Chicago, Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, Johnston from the other crazy mayor from Denver. She has now told these explicit mayors that starting last night, I believe it was at midnight, that they are now going to lose all federal funding. There is now a complete cutoff. It is a temporary pause, and it will be kept off if they continue to keep their cities and states as sanctuary jurisdictions. Now, I've been getting conflicting stories, so don't hold me to this. I've read a couple stories where they say Michelle Wu and Healy and these other mayors were already told by Bondi or her people in a phone call, we want to warn you now, you're going to lose all federal funds. I'm hearing other stories that they just got letters and emails. It wasn't a personal phone call. Whatever it is, Pam Bondi now has ordered all funds, federal funds, to be cut off, temporarily paused, to the mayors of Boston, Chicago, New York, Denver, and to the states of Massachusetts, New York, Chicago, and Denver. Sorry, and Colorado, my bad. So, and other jurisdictions as well, but these are the most high profile. Now, on top of that, again, promises made, promises kept. Pam Bondi, who now is getting the nickname Blowtorch Bondi, and I love it. I love it. Bondi, Pam Bondi, tough as nails, apparently now has told Brandon Johnson of Chicago, Johnston of Denver, Michelle Wu of Boston, and Eric Adams of New York, if your jurisdiction continues to impede with ICE agents and does not allow us to conduct these sweeping deportations and raids of violent criminal illegals, you are breaking the law, you are aiding and abetting criminal illegal alien behavior, and you will be subject to prosecution. And she's now told them, I'm not playing around. Okay? As Trump famously said recently, F-A-F-O, F around and find out. And she basically has told them, you want to F around? You're going to find out. So she has now put these mayors and governors on notice. The federal funds, the spigot is now going to be cut. And if you continue to obstruct, and if you continue to persist in being a sanctuary city or a sanctuary jurisdiction, and you continue to order police and other law enforcement to not cooperate with ICE or to impede ICE in any way, shape, or form, you will be in violation of the federal law, of immigration law, and yes, we're going to slap the handcuffs, we're going to put you in jail. So get out of the way. It's not just the illegals that are illegal. The mayors and the governors are rogue, and they're going rogue. They have been rogue, and they're engaging in illegal criminal behavior as well, and we are not going to stand for it. Thank you, Jesus. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Jesus. Now, let me throw this mother log on the fire. Do you agree with Pam Bondi's decision? It's no longer talk. It's no longer threats. It's now reality. Boston is going to lose millions of dollars, tens of millions in federal funds. New York, tens of millions federal funds. Chicago, Denver, tens of millions in federal funds. Money for hospitals, roads, police department, fire department, first responders, schools, education, you name it. And so, do you agree with Trump's decision, and in this case, Pam Bondi's decision, to now put a pause on all federal funding to sanctuary cities and to sanctuary jurisdictions? I say it's a long time in coming. This should have been done a very, very long time ago. And let me ask you a second question. Is Pam Bondi right or wrong in saying that if they continue to impede, if they continue to not cooperate, Michelle Wu needs to go to prison, Eric Adams needs to go to prison, Brandon Johnson needs to go to prison, Mike Johnston, the Moonbat mayor of Denver, needs to go to prison, Is it time to start locking them up? Or will this turn them into martyrs and feed the media liberal Democrat narrative that Trump is a quote-unquote dictator, Hitler, fascist? You see, we told you. He's locking the opposition up. I am with Pam Bondi all the way. Cut off the federal funding, and if they continue to impede, they're aiding and abetting illegal criminal behavior. They're literally breaking the law. No one is above the law. Lock them up. But that's me. What say you? 617-266-6868 is the number. The showdown between Trump and these blue state cities and governors, these sanctuary cities, has now begun. It is a showdown at high noon. 617-266-6868. Do you agree with Pam Bondi or do you disagree? Paul in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Morning, Professor.
Hi, Paul.
How are you today?
Very good. How are you, Paul?
Good, good. I'm battling a cold myself. Just beating myself up with some supplements and trying to get rid of this awful thing. But I feel your pain.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
As far as Pam Bondi, I think another reason why they call her the blowtorch Bondi, she is hot. She is hot. I agree all the way across the board. I mean, they should go as far as the senators too. Get Warren down there and get Markula down there. Send them all. Send them to Guantanamo Bay. That's how I feel as far as that goes. They're all a bunch of criminals and they're worthless. They do nothing for our state. I'm, of course, from Massachusetts, lived here my whole life, and watched this beautiful state fall because of these criminals. But,
Paul, I'm just curious.
Yes.
Chris, Paul, I got to ask you this. I'm just curious. Do you think they're going to capitulate now that, Bondi's turned off the federal spigot, all the federal funding, and threatening now with actual arrest? Do you think, Michelle Wu will blink, Healy will blink, Adams will blink, Brandon Johnson in Chicago? Brandon Johnson is now openly saying, arrest me, go ahead. He's literally saying, arrest me. Apparently, Pritzker and Johnson are now saying there's a lot of violent criminal illegals in their jail cells. And they're not allowing ICE to go into these prisons to take them. They're preventing ICE. And they're actually telling Trump and ICE and Homan, we're not letting you have them. You want to arrest us? Go ahead. Arrest us. Mike Johnson, he's talking tough in Denver. He says, arrest me. Go ahead. Make me a martyr. So is this bluff? Is this just hot air and bravado? Or do you think some of these crazy radical leftists are insane enough to be a martyr for the cause? Because think about it. You go to jail under Trump, you become a resistance hero. For the Democrats and for the libs. I mean, if they have presidential aspirations, this is how they want to do it. So, my question to you, will these blue state governors and mayors blink, or will they fold? 8:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from Eric on Messenger. Jeff, whenever Attorney General Pam Bondi enters a room, they need to play the 007 theme. Bondi, Pam Bondi. And Eric goes on to say, have them all, these blue city mayors, sanctuary cities, have them arrested and call it Joe Biden's law. No one is above the law. Bingo. That's all they kept shouting for 4 years under Biden. Now, turn that very slogan right back onto them. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Okay, super quick. This is from 508. Jeff, I agree with you completely. Cut off the funding, put these mayors in jail if they resist, freeze their assets, and that should get their attention. 603. Jeff, put Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, Mr. Tough Guy, into those prison cells with those violent prisoners. That might change his mind. And then one more, 617. Jeff, the one lesson that must be learned is this. Don't give a damn about what the media or the Democrats say. Just do what must be done. So, Pam Bondi, the order came out maybe 12, 14 hours ago before midnight, has now issued a direct order through the Department of Justice. She's the Attorney General. All federal funds now will be cut off, temporarily paused, completely, for sanctuary cities, Boston, New York, Chicago, Denver. I can't go through the whole list. There's about 200 of them. But those are the big cities and the big states, the sanctuary jurisdictions. Do you agree? And Bondi has also issued a direct order that if any mayor or governor decides to impede ICE in their raids or deportations of violent criminal illegal aliens, that they are now in violation of the law and will be prosecuted, quote unquote, to the fullest extent of the law. And Homan now has chimed in saying, don't get in our way. If you do, we will arrest you. We will arrest you. We will charge you. We will convict you. And we will put you behind bars. Good idea, bad idea, agree, disagree. Janine in Arlington. Thanks for holding, Janine, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call. It's the first time I've called, and I'm
welcome,
very excited
Janine.
to talk to you. So thank you. I love your show.
Thank you.
And your listeners. So I agree with Pam Bondi 100%. This has been a long time coming, and they were warned. I was hoping this would happen because now Wu and Healy can see what it feels like to turn around and impose something on someone, because it was okay for them to impose the housing in the MBTA communities, and say that they were going to take away funding from those communities if they didn't comply. So now she can FAFO and find out what it feels like.
Janine, I'm just curious, because I agree with you, 1,000%. Not 100, as I like to say, but 1,000%. Janine, the worry that some in Trump's camp have, not Pam Bondi, obviously, not Trump, but just some advisors around them, is, yes, cut off the federal funds, squeeze them, economically, tighten the screws, and that's going to get them to back off. But if you arrest, say, a Michelle Wu, or what I think could actually really happen is Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson or Mike Johnston from Denver. That's a real, because they're really being in your face. They're really thumbing their nose. That what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up feeding this narrative that Trump is a dictator, he's a strong man, he's arresting his political opponents, that this is what we warned you about, this is the end of democracy, and that this will so inflame Democrats, liberals, the media, that Bondi needs to back off. What say you? I'm just curious. What say you?
The thing is that I feel as though people are so uninformed, understanding. I talk to people all day because I work in the service industry, and they're so misinformed and really don't understand the level of violence and things that are going on. And it's, even though I'm concerned about the backlash of what could happen if, people go to jail, how much has to happen? How many people have to get hurt before people start listening is my question, which I guess doesn't answer your question, but we can't keep going on like this. It's an economic crisis. It is a safety crisis. We have no control over what's going on. And if we don't start if we don't start making these things happen and we put our foot down and start doing these things and start complying in some way, we have no order. We have no...
You nailed it. No, it's a constant... Ultimately, you're right. It's a legal, constitutional, and I would ultimately argue spiritual, moral crisis. Because you're right. It's anarchy. It leads, as you said, disorder, chaos, anarchy. Now, I guess I would say, look, my advice to Trump and his people, if they're listening, and again, I love the idea, I love the policy, believe me, I'm with you all the way. I would say be a little media savvy. Make sure that when you do these raids, and if you're going to make an arrest, say if you're going to go into these jails that Brandon Johnson's denying ICE entry to in Chicago. And by the way, they're protecting, these are convicted murderers. I mean, we're talking literally members of MS-13 and Tren de Aragua. I mean, we're talking about people who put, have put Americans in mass graves. I mean, I'm not trying to be gross, but you got to see the crimes. Chopping people's body parts up. I mean, these people are sick. And Brandon Johnson is going to defend them? And you think that's going to play well in the black community on the south side of Chicago? I don't think so. Bring cameras and have Tom Homan there. So Johnson can't claim, he called me the N-word, or you know what they're going to lie. Or he said something racist, or they abused me, or they mistreated me, and then say, you are in violation of the law, sir. I don't want to arrest you, but get out of my way. We are going to get, this person is a murderer. This person is a rapist. This person, say, I don't know why you're protecting them. You are against section this, code this. Please, I'm asking like 3 times. I don't want to do this. Please get out of the way for the last time. If he continues to run his mouth, arrest his ass. And the American people are going to say, well, he knew the consequences. He knew the consequence. In fact, even then, on the 3rd time, I pull out the handcuffs if I'm Homan and say, sir, I don't want to do this. Please, for the last time, for the love of God, get out of the way. So the American public will say, well, look, come on, they bent over backwards. So why are they protecting the most vile scum on the face of the planet who shouldn't even be here, who literally have slaughtered and raped Americans, including women and children, and you're going to defend them, and Johnson is in clear violation of the law. And they really didn't want to arrest him. They gave him multiple chances to step aside. That's the way I would play it. I would be a little cagey. I would do it. I would go all the way. But don't give them anything. And make sure the cameras are rolling the whole time. I don't know, Janine, tell me, you like the idea, don't like the idea? What say you?
So many times, why it happens more than once. These people have rap sheets that are so long, constant violence against children, women, people on the street that aren't even bothering them, and they arrest them and they put them out over and over and over again. We're supposed to be protecting the U.S. citizens. We're supposed to be protecting these people. And instead, we're allowing people that should not be here because they didn't come here through the legal channel, and they've come through here. We're paying them, we're giving them money, we're giving them housing, and they're coming in here and they're hurting people. Regardless of where you come from, you don't turn around and you don't murder someone. You don't assault a child, whether you're a U.S. citizen or somebody that's come over here legally, illegally, it doesn't matter. Why is it okay? And why are we tolerating this, especially in this way? It's wrong. And she is doing the right thing, and we're going to have to deal with the growing pains of what she's doing. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be uncomfortable. We're going to get pushback. But if we don't do this and we don't follow the course and deal with all of the things along the way, it's never going to get better. It's only going to get worse.
Brilliant. Janine, I could not have said this myself. I could not have said it better myself. Really, I could not have said it better. And this is your first time you've ever called? Wow. Wow. Janine, please do me a favor. Don't be a stranger, Janine. Call again, okay? Outstanding call. 617-266-6868. David in Boston. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Jeff.
David, go ahead, my friend.
Jeff, is Sandy the board operator? Is she licensed to practice law in the District of Columbia?
I don't know if she's licensed to practice law in D.C., but she's licensed to practice law, and that's why you are even in D.C., Sandy. Okay, I didn't know that. I affectionately refer to her as my lawyer. So Sandy is my lawyer. So if I'm ever arrested or something ever happens, if I ever become a political prisoner, say Maura Healey arrests me or something, Sandy will be my lawyer. But no, Mike is the one who runs the board. That's why I call him Maestro Mike. And let me tell you, David, he loves the power. Oh, does he love the power? But I digress. Go ahead, David.
Jeff, did you say Sandy is licensed to practice in the District of Columbia?
Yes. In Massachusetts and in the District of Columbia, both.
I know we live in this age of lawfare, and we have to fight back against these communists that are waging lawfare against us and everything. That's the reason I ask, But, hey, speaking of Mike and Sandy and everything...
David, yes, go ahead.
Why do so many callers thank you for taking their calls?
Oh, you mean they should be thanking Mike and Sandy? Well, they're just being polite. You know what I mean? They really should be thanking Mike and Sandy, especially Mike, because he's the one that runs the board. 617. And I've always made a rule. I like to delegate. I think that's the best way to run a show. And so Sandy really is the producer. Mike really does run the board. So Mike is the one who determines the pacing of the show in the sense of who do we go to next. So, like, for example, I got the green color is on Denise and Beverly. So that's why I'm going Denise and Beverly. Thanks for holding, Denise, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How are you? I am ecstatic that Pam Bondi is our Attorney General. I think she's going to do a great job. I tried to call you the other day, but I couldn't do 2 calls and whatever. But anyways, I wanted to tell you a little story. I have a good friend. My son actually was a friend of my son's, and I know the father and the mother and everything. And this woman from Lowell, Garcia Plina, they were in a road rage in Lowell. And the woman came right up to his car, and he had a friend with him, and she shot him right in the chest, killed him. So listen, so she went, they had a jury and everything. She only got 7 years, and they paroled her like 2 months ago, I think it was. And then she just went back for embezzlement now. Now the 7 years is nothing. I mean, my son did 10 years, like I said, for selling his friend's gun, but my son was a really bad heroin addict. But he got 10 years for that. You know what I mean? And so this really gets me upset because, well, anyway, she's going back to court now on the 27th of February in Superior Court in Lowell again. So I'm hoping she don't get the same judge. And she violated parole. And because maybe she's Hispanic, she gets away with everything. I don't know. But I don't think this is fair, the way the justice system is going. And I hope that Pam can fix this because it's not right at all. She murdered him in cold blood.
Well, that's what I've been saying for a very long time, Denise. And I'm very happy you mentioned this case. We live in a 2-tier justice system. We really do. Where we have one set of laws for illegals and another set of law for American citizens. Law-abiding, hardworking American citizens. So your son, and this is what I meant earlier when I said, if someone, you should never rob an old lady, obviously. Please, I want to keep reemphasizing that. I don't want to be misunderstood. But if you're, say, an addict, okay? Heroin addict, meth addict, whatever. Okay, I get it. I can wrap my mind around it. I ripped the purse off. I snatched the purse. Why? Well, I needed to get my fix. Okay. Get that person rehab. That person can be better, overcome their addiction. they're not lifelong criminals. They can be genuinely rehabilitated and have a wonderful life. But when you shoot someone in the freaking chest over, I don't know what, a fender bender, a road rage incident, God knows what it was, you're sick. You're pathological. You're sick. You're a sociopath. You're sick. You're a career criminal. I'm sorry, you're evil. Do you understand? You're evil. And your son, for selling a gun, because obviously he was, a heroin addict, so he needs money to feed his habit. And I know you've told me stories about your son. He's now working. He's rehabilitated, doesn't do drugs, got a job. He's a functioning, member of society, and you're very proud of him, and you should be proud of him. But, he didn't murder anybody. He just sold a gun. I mean, I'm not saying you should sell guns. But 10 years? But an illegal goes boom right in the chest and kills you point blank range? And they don't even serve the 7. That's the other thing. If they served at least the 7, okay, at least it was 7. It's 3.5, it's 4 years, it's nothing. They're out on parole. They break their parole, they commit other crimes. That's what Trump is talking about. Because it's like a revolving door. And these liberals, these idiots, in these sanctuary cities and jurisdictions, like Boston, to use this as an example, or Massachusetts, these moonbats, we're so tolerant. I'm like, no, you guys are sick. You're pathetic. You're coddling criminals until they attack you. Notice, when Pelosi's husband was attacked by that guy in the at the Pelosi's mansion in San Francisco, oh man, what shoot him in the chest? Just like, what was it, a wrench or whatever it was, a pipe, and smacked Pelosi in the head, Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, and cracked him in the head. They threw the book at this guy. They threw the book at him. He's going to be spending decades in jail. So if you go after one of these Democrat politicians or their family, or if you're a J6er, 20 years for you, 23 years for you. I just walked around the building, 23 years, rot in that gulag. But if you're an illegal, bang, right in the chest. 7? 7? Maybe 3.5, 4 years for good behavior? This has got to stop. One-tier justice. Period. And I'm sorry, you murder someone in cold blood, I think it's either life in prison or the death penalty. That's it. To me, we are way too lax on crime. And just think about it for a second. Do you know how insulting that sentence is? Like, this is, I always look around and I'm like, am I the only one that's insane here? You just took someone's life. You took their life. That person is never going to get married. I mean, I'm assuming it was a younger person. Maybe they're already married. But you get my point. They're never going to get married. They're not going to have children. They're not going to, their life is gone. The parents are affected. The siblings are affected. You just took someone's life, and that person's life is only worth 7 years? No, I'm sorry. You take someone's life, you forfeit your life. To me, that's justice. It's not revenge. It's justice. So either life in prison or the death penalty. Take your pick. Denise, thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. I mean, honestly, this is an insult. Here, look. Imagine your better half, your spouse, shot, dead, road rage incident, point blank in the chest, dead. Or your child, killed. Or your niece or nephew or your brother or your sister, whatever, killed, gone, dead, right on the spot, shot in the chest. And the perpetrator, that animal, gets 7 years in jail? So that's all my child's life was worth, is 7 years? I'm sorry, that's all my son's worth, or my nephew's life worth? That's all, my brother? That's it? So my brother is just worth 7 years? That's it? So kill him, and then you're back on the streets after 3, 4, actually with good behavior, 4 years. Now, they're so stupid, and they're such, they're so evil that they break their parole and they commit other crimes because they can't help themselves. That's Trump's point. We got to get him out. I mean, this should be 100-0. There should be no debate. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. So I think he's listening to something on maybe Rosetta Stone or whatever it is. Gordon in Vermont. Thanks for holding, Gordon, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Gordon.
I have I thought about this insurrection thing, and it's kind of funny because those January 6th peaceful protesters spent 4 years doing hard time for supposedly insurrection when it was really a peaceful protest for the vast majority of them. And these politicians are going around openly committing insurrection by defying the law of the land. They should go to prison for that. Seems simple, really.
I'm so with you. Look, Gordon, honestly, if you or I were harboring drug traffickers, murderers, rapists, they would throw the book at you. They would throw the book at me. Like, what are we talking about? I say, well, my house is a sanctuary house. I don't care. You can call it whatever you want. You're in defiance of the law. Handcuff him and get his ass in jail. So I'm with you. Arrest him. Pam Bondi, I'm with you. Blowtorch Bondi. Take them out. Every single one of them. 19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868. David, I think we've reconnected with David in Medford. David, thanks for holding and welcome.
Hello, good morning. Sorry about the screw up. Listen, my first original call was for Gaza. I'll get back to that. For Pam Bondi, everyone knew what was going to go on the minute it was going to go. Stop giving all these Democratic mayors martyrdom. They ain't martyrdom. They're doing their 15 minutes of fame, and pretty soon those lights are going to go out. The U.S. Attorney for Boston was on last night, was on the news, and pretty much verbatim said everything Pam Bondi said in a more kinder, gentler way, saying, don't get in our way. And this was on the news, okay? So you can literally watch it talk. Nice, calm, can true. So don't get in my way. We're going, all right? So Trump is going to do what he does. And here's something else that was a little fluke, and I heard it from when I was watching the news for the U.S. Attorney. Well, Trump's first term, the funding already went to court. And the president has the power. And that is now, as they like to say, codified. So he can do whatever the hell he wants. Do it. Pull the plug. Let everyone be their martyr. Let them go and do their thing. Once the people, and I'd like to say this to people, once the people see and say, oh, man, look at this. Boom. Whole bunch of people going out like you saw them lining up to go on that military aircraft. I bet you there is at least 3/4 of this country saying, yay, yay.
David, I think you nailed it. No, I think you nailed it, David. Look, it's overwhelming support for these deportations. Overwhelming. Cutting federal funds, overwhelming support. Arresting these rogue, to me, illegal, corrupt. You want to talk about an insurrection? That's an insurrection. You're openly defying federal law, immigration law, lawful ICE raids to protect criminal, violent, illegal aliens. I mean, if that's not insurrection, I don't know what is. So I think there's overwhelming support. And David, look, I agree with you. I think Michelle Wu is all talk, no action. I think she's going to fold like a cheap suit. I think Healy's going to fold like a cheap suit. I think Eric Adams and Hochul in New York are going to fold. I'm not so sure about the mayor of Chicago or the mayor of Denver. And I'm just curious. Do you think they have what it takes? Are they that serious that they're willing to go to jail? Or do you think they're just grandstanding and bluffing? That in the end, when the federal money gets cut off and their constituents are whining and complaining, and I don't blame them, saying there's no money for anything, and Holman and his ICE people show up with handcuffs, that they're going to say, you know what? We're waving the white flag of surrender. Do you think they're serious, or do you think they're just playing to the cameras?
To the cameras. They're playing to the cameras because the cameras belong to their ilk.
That's a good point. David, that's a very good point.
It's almost like being on the Gong Show and being a real nut. When you get gonged, it's really you. They're really nuts. Let them be in front of the thing, just like ice. Go in. Okay, you want to stand there? Cuff them. Give them 5 seconds. You cuff. We do the perp walk. See you later. Go on to the next wave of people. He'll be forgotten in a week.
David, thank you very much for that call. Okay, this is from 512. Jeff, listen to this. An illegal alien on Martha's Vineyard was just sentenced to a mere 4 months for his role as the lookout guy in a bank robbery. Some J6ers got 4 years for just taking a selfie. So I don't want to hear these liberals and moonbats, cry me a river. Oh, you're throwing the book at these illegals. Oh, these criminals. Oh, how dare you launch these ICE raids? How dare you cut off all our money, the federal funding? Oh, no, that's so inhumane. Yeah, sorry. Been there, done that. Kelly in Salisbury. Thanks for holding, Kelly, and welcome.
Hi, good morning, Jeff. All of this is related to me. I feel like we were talking about prisons and about ICE raids and these mayors that are not helpful. And it really comes back to putting law enforcement in danger, like our loved ones with repeat criminals you were talking about earlier who keep going back to prison, or the lifers that just have nothing to lose. Instead of having them stabbing correctional officers or medical personnel, our American families, send them to Gitmo. Send them somewhere else where they don't have the freedoms to commit heinous crimes against our American law enforcement. It's all related. Where is the outrage for people getting hurt, Americans getting hurt, that do the job that most people are too afraid to do?
Well, that's a really, really good point. And, the only thing I would quibble with, Kelly, is you're saying, they're getting hurt. I would say they're getting more than hurt. Their throats are getting slashed. They're getting murdered. They're getting raped. They're getting molested. These corrections officers are, oh my God, I don't know how some of them do the job, really. I mean, they're getting knifed. They're getting stabbed. It's one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. For what? To detain illegal aliens who are not even citizens of the United States, who came into our country illegally? And literally some of the most notorious violent criminals on earth? So they're not just putting the larger community at risk, obviously, once we let them out, but you're right, they're putting law enforcement, they're putting corrections officers, they're putting medical personnel. Like, enough is enough. Like, why don't we start looking out for our own people? Kelly, you hit the nail right on the head. Kelly, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Okay, Pam Bondi now says all federal funding is going to be cut off. Boston, Massachusetts, New York, Chicago, Denver. Do you agree? 32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Promises made, promises being kept, my friends. So here it is. Trump now is going to drop the hammer. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, has now ordered through the Department of Justice all federal funds to over 200 sanctuary cities, sanctuary jurisdictions, Boston, New York, Chicago, Denver, Atlanta, L.A. I could go on, including, by the way, sanctuary states like California, like Massachusetts, like New York. So it's not just going to be at the local level, it's going to be at the state level. All federal funding is going to be cut off, at least temporarily, until they start complying with ICE and the mass deportations of violent, criminal, illegal aliens taking place. Furthermore, Pam Bondi now has issued a direct order to DOJ officials, to ICE, that if any sanctuary city mayor or governor impedes ICE as they conduct these raids or deportations, or willfully obstructs cooperation, between local law enforcement and federal ICE agents, they are to be arrested on the spot. Now let's see how tough Michelle Wu is. Let's see now how tough Eric Adams is. I want to see Maura Healey. She talked a big game when she was on with Larry Stop the Hammering O'Donnell. Now I'm not so sure. Mike Johnston, the Moonbat mayor of Denver, said he's going to create a human shield, a human chain, to prevent ICE from coming into Denver and deporting many of these MS-13 Trento Aragua gangbangers. Let's see if he's willing to do it. So, my question to you, very simple. Do you agree with Trump now cutting off the federal funding? It is going to hurt a lot of cities, a lot of budgets, a lot of states. And should these mayors be arrested if they stand in the way? 617-266-6868. CJ in Boston. Thanks for holding, CJ, and welcome.
I have to say, as Pam Bondi, I love you in a non-sexual way. Jeff, this is just another program that has backfired on the Democrats. Cities, towns, and municipalities get trillions of dollars a year based on the census of a city. That's why these Democratic mayors were taking in these illegals, because the amount of money that they get is based upon the number of individuals in the city. But now it's backfired on them. As a matter of fact, in August of this year, Governor Haley put out a press release thanking the Biden-Harris administration for awarding Massachusetts more than $20 million in federal funding to support family shelter costs. And as we speak, the legislature is now debating whether or not to extend that family shelter program and to allocate more money. I would just say this: rescind that right to shelter law. Make that available to only residents of Massachusetts who have lived in Massachusetts for a minimum of 2 years. But, Jeff, this is just one of the many programs folding on these people. But the downside here is this: once this federal money is pulled, people in Boston, Chicago, New York, the major blue cities, and the major blue states, but particularly in the cities, the property tax owners are going to be faced with a huge increase in property taxes to cover the costs for the layoffs that are going to occur. And that is something that the liberals here in Boston and throughout Massachusetts need to recognize, that the people that you are placing in public office, these liberals, they are costing you. When those taxes go up in the city of Boston, your rents are going to go up. The cost of living is going to go up. Boston ranks right now as the fourth most expensive city to live in. And I think Michelle Wu is shooting for number one. You know, the other day, Robert Kraft's son, Josh Kraft, announced that he's running for the mayor of the city of Boston. Well, you know, when you compare him to Michelle Wu, this guy appears to be more liberal than Michelle Wu. And he got about as much as chance of becoming mayor of the city of Boston than he would have trying to kick a 100-yard field goal. Because he's not only said that he will keep Boston a sanctuary city, he said that he's going to find his way around rent control. And if anybody has lived under rent control during the 70s and 80s in Boston, they know it ruined the property and property values in the city of Boston. But this is just another instance of the Democrats biting themselves and hurting the citizens of not only the Commonwealth of this country, but throughout this country. You know, Brandon Johnson wanted to give an additional $300 million increase in property taxes to the property owners in Chicago. And if anybody had watched that town hall meeting, you know, and 99% of those people that spoke to Brandon Johnson are against him, you know, they know what's going on. You're putting immigrants, illegal immigrants, ahead of our own people, of our own citizenry.
And CJ, just to reinforce what you're saying, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I promise I'll give you all the time you need. But they were overwhelmingly black. You understand? So they can't even frame it as a race issue. It was not just, you're right, 99% against them. Overwhelmingly, these were black residents, black workers, black taxpayers, black property owners, black renters. And they're like, you're screwing us, man. Like, you're shafting us like no one's ever shafted us before. CJ, if you don't mind, I want to read to you something because you're very perceptive and I want to get your take. This is from Charles, and this is what he messaged me. Jeff, my fear is that there will be too many low information voters out there that will never hear that it is the governor, in this case Maura Healey, the governor's fault or Mayor Michelle Wu's fault for all this, and will believe that Trump wants to harm all students in schools. We'll see cameras in schools with crying kids, etc. And too many people, the low information voters, will buy it because they will never hear or see that it's the mayor or the governor's fault. In other words, that the media and the Dems are going to exploit this. The children. And they're going to have kids sobbing on camera. My daddy was deported. My mommy was deported. I'm scared. ICE agents came into my school. ICE agents went into our church. ICE agents went into our home or our community. And the low info people, the Bills in Sudbury and the Franks in Gloucester are going to be, this is outrageous. Trump's a dictator. He's hurting kids, for God's sake. Is that a concern, CJ? That in terms of popular opinion propaganda, the Dems can use it against Trump and against Pam Bondi? What say you?
Information voters not to recognize that she's already indicated it wouldn't be her fault if the cities and towns put up speeding cameras. It wouldn't be her fault if they charged 2 cents for a tax on a sweetened candy bar. She's hiding behind the fact right now that she has placed us $1.5 billion in the red. That outgoing our former governor used $2 billion in COVID relief fund that we have to pay back over 10 years because he used it for unemployment benefits. I have a message for Maura Healey, and it is this. You're trying every which way to pick the pockets of the citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, whether it be putting cameras on school buses, cameras on every corner, taxes on meals, everything that you can think about. 2 cents on a 25-cent candy bar or 50-cent candy bar because it has sugar in it. I mean, let me just say this, Governor Healey. You've allowed pot distribution and selling in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts along with the legislators. You have allowed gambling in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, sports gambling, gambling on college games. The only thing that you have not tapped into yet, what I would go for. You have to legalize prostitution, Maura. Yeah, that's it. We're bringing another $1 million, $2 million a year in tax revenue. What else is she going to do to tax the people? We were known for years as Taxachusetts, and Maura Healey is bringing us back. And there was a report that I read. I don't know, it's just something that I read. Whereas she wants to act.
Well, no, I know. Our tax rates now are some of the highest in the entire country. We're right up there with New York, with California. And like New York and California, taxpayers, middle-class people, business owners are fleeing. They're leaving. They're done. 9:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Now, you know who also may be in trouble and maybe potentially serious trouble? The governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy. Listen to this moonbat clown. So, it was over the weekend. It was at a Democrat event. And he's bragging that he and his wife are harboring an illegal alien in their house. Actually, it's a mansion. In their mansion above the garage. Listen to this. Roll cut 103. Mike.
Tammy and I were talking about, I don't want to get into too much detail, but there's someone in our broader universe whose immigration status is not yet at the point that they are trying to get it to. And we said, you know what? Let's have her live at our house above our garage. And good luck to the feds coming in to try to get her.
Now, his people are trying to desperately walk it back, saying, no, tough guy Phil, she's legal. No. She's just on a work visa. She wants to get a green card. He misspoke. Well, if he misspoke, why did he say, good luck to the feds to try to get her? If she's on a legitimate work visa, the feds won't get her. Listen to Tom Homan. You know why he's walking it back? Here's why. Listen to border czar Tom Homan. Roll cut 104. Mike.
The governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, basically admitted that he knew somebody that didn't have full documentation, that he was hiding over his garage. Then we have Tom Tillis, senator from North Carolina, saying that people should have the right to sue sanctuary cities and states that aid and abet in lawbreaking. Your comment on all of that?
Well, I think the governor's pretty foolish saying what he said, because I got note of it, won't let it go, we'll look into it. And if he's knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien, that's a violation of Title 8 United States Code 1324. I would seek prosecution, or the secretary would seek prosecution. So maybe he's bluffing. If he's not, we'll deal with that.
If he's bluffing, why is he bluffing? Why is he lying? What's like? You want to? Hey, I'm a tough guy. The Sopranos. Come and get her. Come and get her. She's in my garage. So if you're lying and she's a legal immigrant, then what's the tough guy act for? But if she's illegal, buddy, you got problems. And if I'm Tom Homan, I'd raid that house. Honest to God, raid that house. Ask that woman what exactly her immigration status is. And if she is an illegal, put the cuffs right on Phil Murphy and his wife. 617-266-6868. Keith in Ohio. Thanks for holding, Keith, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. I got a little story for you. My cousin was murdered in Boston. She was a 19-year-old co-ed back in 1970 or 71. The guy was still alive in the prison 2 years ago, because I know somebody who was a guard there. He had the death penalty, but they don't do that in Massachusetts, as you're well aware. In fact, this guy called Tom Finneran, remember him?
Yes.
We all passed a law, the ballot initiative, and that we wanted the death penalty back. He ignored it because he went against the will of the people. These politicians don't care what we do or what we say. I think a few nights in Framingham would do a great job for Maura Healey. I know she likes girls, but I think it would be a fun time for her to reunite with her friends and the people that she cares about. So put her right in Framingham.
I'm with you, along with Michelle Wu. And let's see how they like it. Keith, I love that call. Thank you, my friend. Anthony in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Anthony, and welcome.
Jeff, I want to just say my condolences to the loss of your dad.
Thank you, Anthony.
I haven't spoken to you in a while, but you have said many times throughout your shows, the Democrats play what? Smash Mouth football, while we play badminton.
Badminton, that's right.
Well, guess what? We're not playing badminton anymore. We're lining up saying, let's go. Bring it on. The last, whatever you want to call them, that attorney general, that hack, what did he do in Mar-a-Lago? He sent his goons there to do what? Shoot, right?
They came in with guns blazing, raided Trump's home with shoot-to-kill orders. Merrick Garland. He was Biden's attorney general.
So you know what? They can do what they want, expect no consequences, but yet we have to play, let's just go touchy-touchy. We can't hurt the feelings. Those days are over. Pam Bondi, she means business. President Trump, this term here, he means business. Promises made, promises kept. Get them out.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Anthony, thank you for that call. Paul in Plymouth, thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, sorry about your dad.
Thank you, Paul.
Hey, listen, these people are impossible, to use the word. They're impossible, and I'll tell you what, the base of the Democratic Party, they are not representing them anymore. They're representing the elitists and the far left that you see on the universities. That's who's running the Democratic Party. They're not representing the average Joe union worker that was the core of the Democratic Party anymore.
Those days are gone. You're completely right, Paul. And that's why the Democratic Party now, historic lows in popularity in their ratings among Americans. So we're watching the Democratic Party literally break up in front of our eyes. Why? Because they're putting illegals above Americans. They're insane. Bye-bye.